Sì,
Va un po' meglio?
sì, sì, molto
Perfetto.
meglio. Bene,
Benissimo.
ottimo.
Ok, perfetto.
Geology, geology, geology. Welcome everybody to another episode of Mini Geology. This is Daniel Minizini, your inquisitive geologist. And today with us, we have the president of the European Geosciences Union, Alberto Montanari. He's a professor at the University of Bologna in Italy. Welcome, Alberto.
Thank you. Very pleased to meet you today, Daniel.
Alberto, I would like you to start this conversation telling us how would you describe yourself, you as a person, you that you are the president of this great organization that is the European Geosciences Union.
It's really a pleasure to start with this question. And if I had to define myself with a few words, I would say that I am passionate of sports. And the reason is that, I live in Italy, and since I was a child, I was really attracted by sporting activities. And I think that this was the reason why actually I went to the university to study engineering, and I decided to become a researcher because, my mother was telling me that studying and practicing sporting activities were not compatible. So it sounded to me like a challenge, and I decided that I would take my sporting activities, and the toughest university that people told me was at that time engineering. So for this reason, I decided also to become an engineer. Of course, also I liked the field of engineering. And now, from the point of view of my professional life, I am, as you said, a professor at the University of Bologna. I live actually not in Bologna, but in Reggio Emilia. It's a city that is located 60 kilometers from Bologna. I am a commuter, actually. And I didn't study in Bologna, and I went to different cities in Italy to take my degree, my PhD. The degree was in Parma. The PhD was in Milan. Actually, during my PhD, I spent 6 months in the United States, in Boston, at Boston University, studying mathematics. And then I went to Bologna, where I started as an associate professor in 2001. And now I am full professor. I'm teaching hydrology. Hydrology is the science of the water cycle. And also I teach hydraulic works, we call it, which means how to design, it's in engineering, so how to design infrastructures like bridges, like levees. And I am a passionate of environmental sciences. I started to make my research around 25 years ago during my PhD in hydrology, of course. And then if I had to describe my main subject of research, I would say that it's change in the widest sense. Because when you say change, people usually think at climate change. And I would like to study change from a wider perspective. It's change in society, change in water cycle, change in the environment, and how they combine together to make building a sustainable development a challenge for us. And also I am very passionate about science policy. So this is why I decided to give a contribution to scientific associations.
Actually, Alberto, I would like to investigate a little bit more, knowing that you accepted the challenge of your mother. How was this challenge of becoming the president of the EGU? How did you decide to try to arrive to that position?
I decided when I started my research activity to give a contribution to science policy because I was really appreciating what the scientific associations and founding agencies were giving to me. So I felt it was my duty to give back as part of what I received. And therefore I started as a journal editor, associate editor at the beginning. And I started by simply convening sessions at the General Assembly of the European Geosciences Union and convening session at the American Geophysical Union meetings. And it was relatively easy then to get more and more involved in the management of these associations. And I mainly served for 3 associations: EGU, in Europe. It's based in Europe, EGU, which, as you know, is based in the United States, and also IUGG, which is an international association. In EGU, I started as president of the Hydrological Sciences Division. And then I took the role of chair of the Union Awards and Medals Committee. And the reason is that I really like scientific assessment. It's something that I feel very inspired to do. And indeed, it was a very nice experience. And when I stepped down in 2016, I was offered this opportunity to stand for presidency, and so I got it. And now I am to say I am very close to the end of my term, because I started in April 2019, and April 2021 I will hand over. I will serve as vice president for 1 more year, and then my term is gone.
So Alberto, you have been exposed to at least 3 great associations related to geoscience. For what you see in the position where you are, what are the skills that you need to have in order to become president?
I think the main skill is that you have to be a problem solver, because a problem solver, and you have to be very good in seeking compromise when the need arises, because yeah, I would say the main skill is to be able to understand people, and to be able to get along with people by providing them with some positive stimulus. And it seems easy, but actually it's not, because you know you have to do with a variety of different persons, and you have to be able to understand them, and since the first meeting, since the first minute, and you have to find a way to stimulate them, and this is what I think it is needed.
Where does it come from, you being an engineer? The skill from?
I would say again from sports, because when I was an athlete, I was competing, I felt like it was again my duty to contribute to the organization of the sporting activities. And I got involved in my team, in the management of my team. It was extremely tough, because it was very controversial, the management. And again, I learned to get along with people and to seek compromise. I think what do you need, you may say, in order to be a problem solver? I think you have to be able to look for the benefit of people before than your own benefit, which is not easy. But at the end, I think that if you seek the benefit of people, you also seek your benefit. And this is what I always tell my student. And if you just look for yourself, it's not your benefit. If you look for the other persons, then if you care about them, it's your personal benefit as well. So I think, again, it was sporting activities.
Very interesting what comes out from the sports activities. And you said one of the main skills, if not the main one, is problem solving. What are the problems that you have solved or that you have tackled during your presidency at the European Geosciences Union?
Yeah, first of all, you know, we are the organizers of a big conference, and every time that every year, because it's an annual conference, you experience different problems and organizational problems. Like, for instance, this ERT is, of course, a trivial example. It was really challenging because we were informed 1 month before the conference that we couldn't make it. And so in 1 week, we had to devise a virtual conference. It was, I think, the first experience of a huge conference that was run entirely virtual. But this is, of course, a trivial example. But also in the day-to-day business, you have with the office, with the management of the union, there are so many activities that every day you have a problem. And but the problems are also opportunities. So if you are a problem solver, it means that you transform the problems in opportunities. And I want to make another example. I think one major achievement of EGU during the past 2 years is the creation of a repository. It's a repository where every contribution submitted to EGU will be stored. I think it is a major step forward because we will host there in a systematic archive, again, all the contributions that are submitted to us, and we will accept also preprints, whatever. And I tell you, it was not easy because organizing a repository, you have to solve several concerns in scientists, like how do you ensure the quality control? And this was really challenging, how to make people relaxed about the idea that everybody will be able to submit contributions while ensuring the quality control. So it was really a challenge, but I think it will be indeed a great opportunity.
And about the challenges, what are the macro topics that they are internally debated?
In terms of management, during the past 2 years, we discussed a lot about openness and diversity and equality of opportunities. These are our pillars now. EGU has always been a strong promoter of openness, also open access, open science, and now we want to move another step forward. So the repository is another step forward, but we discuss a lot because, you know, openness means also that you should give the opportunity to everybody to attend the initiatives. And it's not easy because this means that you have to reduce the registration fees or cancel them. Like, for instance, this year, the virtual conference was free registration. And this is a challenge because, of course, the union has expenses. So we discuss a lot in terms of management, how to seek compromise between, of course, our will to be open and, of course, our will to keep the union alive. And this is, I think, one of the major steps, and also equality and diversity and equality of opportunities. I think we made significant step forwards in the past couple of years. I'm willing to speak and give more details later on if you are interested. But again, it is really challenging because it's very easy to say that we want to be inclusive, but in terms of strategies, successful strategies, it is really tough. It is really tough. And scientifically, you know, EGU is about Earth, planetary and space sciences. So the hot topics are today sustainability and climate change coupled with sustainability. And also in general, I would say the coupling of science and society. So how to make our research really impactful by preserving the high value of blue sky research. We really believe in blue sky research, which means basic research, actually. On the other hand, we have to make it impactful. And this is something that is frequently discussed.
How do you do it?
You know, I think the strategy is to try to connect scientists with policymakers, which is another tough story. It is because, you know, scientists are not really trained to that. And they tend not to see the benefit. At the same time, policymakers may be reluctant because they may look at scientists like theoreticians with no, let's say, design skills. Actually, I think in Europe there is a fertile now environment because I think some sectors of the European community, some policymakers are open to science. And in EGU, we decided to hire a policy officer and to build a science policy working group. So at any of our General Assembly, we try to put together sessions dedicated to blue sky research with sessions on policy. I think we are achieving small steps, but we are slowly moving forward.
What would be your goal? What do you aim to if you had, the possibility to have a smoother relationship with the policymakers, including the ones that you're bringing in within the society? What would be the moonshot?
The goal would be to be able to look at the science behind the major challenges for the humanity today, to look at the science with a positive approach. For instance, look at climate change. Climate change is considered to be one of the major challenges for humanity today. And the relationship between policymakers and science is not easy. So it's not easy. If you look at the many conferences that are organized, they often commit to some pathways which turn out to be economically not sustainable. So this implies that the policymakers sometimes think that scientists are not good in practical issues, in practical things. And I think my main dream would be, again, to be able to build a fruitful relationship between policymakers and scientists. And I think, again, the way forward is compromise. We should be able to eliminate the controversy. And another dream is, if you look at inside the scientific community, there are controversies. On any topical issue that you may identify, scientists are involved in some controversies which undermine our capability to be effective in communicating with the policymakers. And I very frequently ask myself, how could I resolve these controversies? For instance, if you look at climate and the climate change, it's clear that there is some controversy in the political debate and also in science. I really would like, my dream is to try to bridge different sides of these debates, because actually our target is the same. So I am convinced the target of politicians, the target of scientists, any scientist, is to ensure a sustainable future to humanity. And so given that the target is the same, I think we should be able to look for the common good instead of losing energy in controversies.
Do you see any space in the world, any country, where you have a harmonious relationship between policymaker and scientists that you see as a role model to imitate or try to bring home?
This is not an easy question to answer. I may say my gut feeling is that there is a diversity of situations. My experiences are in the Western world, but if I compare the relationship between science and policymaking in Europe, is very different with respect to the United States. And also within Europe, there is a variety of relationships. Your question is very good. I am thinking of Sweden, where I think also I was very interested by the strategy of Sweden with COVID-19, and I think they have a relationship between science and policymaker that may be interesting to look in detail, to look at in detail.
With all of these topics that you have to deal with every day, do you have any figure, any person, any character that inspires you when you are doing your work every day?
I am inspired by several people, and I must say that in my day-to-day work in my university, but also in EGU, I meet a lot of interesting people, but I couldn't say that I have a hero. I see that many of my colleagues have one. I think I have many, and so I'm sorry, but I can't give you a name.
Alberto, is it maybe related to the place where you come from? You are in Reggio Emilia now. Did you grow up there in
Yeah,
Emilia?
I grew up there. Yes,
How
yes.
much did the culture around you influence you? I think a lot, especially since we are knowing you a little bit better. Do you want to say something about the place where you come from?
Yes, it is a very flat region, and but you have to take into account that when I say very flat, I say it from the Italian point of view. So it is not so large compared with the flat regions in the United States. And in my region, when you turn around, you can see mountains in all the directions. And if I may say something about how my region inspired me, I would say that probably Italy for sure inspired me a lot. I am a very practical person, and the reason I think is that my grandparents were farmers, actually. Not really farmers, they were cheesemakers, but very related to agriculture. And I was educated in a very practical manner. I was taught to be very independent since the beginning, and to be independent in solving the everyday problem that any child has. And you have to take into account that Italy is very diverse in terms of culture, and I think this may be the reason why I am so flexible.
Alberto, you are an Italian in the heart of Europe now, at the presidency of this EGU. How does it feel representing Italy there, and how are the other Europeans looking at you as an Italian researcher?
I would say that you know, when you become the president, you have to represent everybody. Of course, this is a trivial premise, and I would say that when I was elected, some people concluded that it was a good thing because of diversity, because most of the president of EGU was founded just 17 years ago, so it's a young association. It counts a lot of members, but it's young. And most of them were North Europeans. So some people said it's good to have a Mediterranean president, but on the other hand, I must say that I never felt like I was considered different from the other presidents. And also, I was concerned by my English at the beginning, because in the north of Europe, they speak a much better English than in the south of Europe. And I must say that I never found anybody complaining my English. Quite the opposite. There were people saying that my English was more understandable because I'm not a good speaker. So I don't think there was any particular feeling. And then even now we are electing the president every 2 years, and we don't have any particular feeling. We are just attentive to diversity, and we look at diversity in gender, but also geographical diversity. But once the president is elected, I don't think. And I must say that even in Italy, they didn't approach me trying to get some benefit from the fact that there was an Italian president. Absolutely not.
Well, talking about practical things, what figure is more practical than a doctor? So if you were a doctor, Alberto, and the EGU was your patient, how would you describe the status of your patient?
I would say that it's in very good health, but not much resilient, because, and I explain you why. First of all, it's a young association, and it's mainly a volunteer-based association. So the number of staff is very small. And so relying on volunteers means that you have to be very careful very careful of institutional resilience. So I would say, okay, the health is very good, but still it's a patient that you have to be very careful in perturbating the equilibrium. You know, when you deal with elder people, sometimes doctors say it's a very good health condition, but you have to be very careful not to modify the equilibrium. And I would say the same for EGU.
Do you see other similar associations or societies, like maybe EGU or GSA or AAPG as competitors?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think one very good thing during these months was the corporative attitude of all these associations. We have regular meetings, the governors of GSA, EGU, EGU, JPGU, and also the Geological Society of London, American Geoscience Institute. We meet periodically, and I don't see any reason to compete. I mean, I think if you intend competition, if reciprocal support and stimulation, because of course we look at what GSA and AGU do, and try to do better. But we try to do better because we are stimulated, not because we want to prevail. And I have the same feeling by the sister associations. I really feel in a corporative context. And I think this is really very good.
So who should join the European Geosciences Union? If you had to persuade some of the viewers or listeners, who would you like to join and why to join EGU?
I think we target young early career scientists, early career researchers, and but from everywhere in the world. And I think it is important for persons working in geosciences. I think it's important to be part of a network. So my suggestion also to my student is you have to be a member of AGU, EGU, IUGG, any association that it's related to your field, which has a very good network of members. And I think somebody is also talking about a global geoscientific association. I think it's so far it would have been not productive, in my opinion, to try to organize a global association because I mean, I think you need, for the sake of diversity, also regional meetings. And a global association, I mean, the organizational effort for organizing regional meetings would be too demanding. I think the way we are organized now, according to continents, is perfect. And so I would say to any geoscientist, get affiliated to EGU, but also AGU, because you know the subscription fee is very reduced. And now we are entering into a new virtual setting. Maybe that there are opportunities for more easily join these associations. But a short answer to your question is we are targeting early career scientists, early career research.
Why so?
Because they have a future. And also, you know, I think it is ideally, if you want to get the best from the human brain, you have to mix experience with energy. So I think ideally a cooperation between senior scientists and young scientists, it's the way forward. I know that this may sound naive, and I know that it's not easy to build this relationship, but I really think we progressed a lot in the past 10 years, but really a lot. And this is also another of my dreams, just to try to bridge the energy of young people with the experience of senior scientists.
Alberto, how does the union, the European Geosciences Union, finance itself?
It's mainly financed by publications and scientific meetings. And also there is membership, but membership is just a tiny income.
But
And
you're going to have problems now if the two elements of incomes are journals, subscriptions, and the conferences, since the conferences are going virtual. And then on the other side, you said you are kind of fighting for open access.
Yes, in fact, I said that this is a challenge because, you know, open access, our journals are already open access, but with the setting where the authors pay for publication. And so you don't have any subscription fees to do to journals. We don't have any, but we have the authors paying for the papers. Actually, we were able to manage a quite reduced subscription fee for open access. And now we are revising it because we need to make a fixed price independent of the number of pages for, I mean, for organizational purposes. But I mean, I think that we are very efficient, and for this reason, we can get some income while keeping the subscription, the publication fee very small. Actually, we wanted to reduce it even more, but then you are right. We had the problem of the meetings going virtual, and so I think this is a situation that requires a careful assessment, because I tell you, the most expensive solution is the hybrid meeting. If the meeting is only virtual, you don't have to pay for the conference center. And if you want to make a hybrid meeting, you have less people attending in presence, which means that you have to apply a reduced subscription fee. You have to pay for additional technology. You have to cover the expenses for the conference center. Then we are concerned because we are looking at the future. EGU 21, as you may probably know, we decided to make it fully virtual. But in 22, we really hope to make an hybrid meeting, because we don't want to lose the benefit of the physical presence for the people who don't have to travel too much to reach Vienna in our case. So we are carefully considering the situation for the years to come, because you are right, maybe that the scientific events, the income from scientific events is reduced.
But Alberto, you just mentioned that the most expensive scenario would be having a hybrid meeting. So yes, you are ready to tackle this situation where you're going to spend a lot.
That's true. In fact, we are now carefully assessing, carefully devising a strategy. I can tell you that there is a lot of uncertainty, of course, because it's difficult to make a prediction of how many people will attend in presence and how many people will attend virtually. So we are trying to make an ensemble of different scenarios, and in order to see what solutions are sustainable. I am confident that we will find one, because of course we have to make a mix, a balance, sorry, between the conference fees and the need of sustain the union. And also, let me say, for publications, so far, they were not impacted. Our statistics in terms of publications were not impacted by COVID-19. And so we are confident that they will not be impacted also in the future. For meetings, of course, depending on the number of attendants, maybe that we can succeed in keeping balance between the income from publication and income from meetings. Because if you want to make the union resilient, of course, you have to rely on several different incomes. And so ideally, we have these two pillars plus membership, but membership is not a real pillar. And we want to make these two pillars balanced.
What about an extra avenue of funding with donations and obviously chasing the donors?
You know, donations are a usual solution for the Americas. In Europe, it's not very popular. So it's a different culture. It's it's not very popular. So we are discussing about donations indeed, but so far we tried to collect through donations, like for instance GSA, EGU do, but it's not so popular. And also, if you look at the academia, in the United States, it's quite typical that families decide to found a chair in the university. In Europe, it doesn't happen. And because it's, I mean, there is a different culture that it's based on probably a higher taxation, but also a higher expectation of public services.
Would you, you as a representative of EGU, accept donations from, let's say, oil companies or rich tycoons that they?
I mean, we are open to proposals for donations, and the council decides. Of course, we have an ethics committee who may also who evaluates the opportunity, the pros and cons of any donation. Actually, I mean, I don't think for us it's not really a big problem, because to my mind, in the recent years, we were never approached. And I also tell you, from an administrative point of view, we are a not-for-profit association. According to the fiscal regime in Europe, it requires really a careful assessment. For instance, we were recently approached by an individual who wanted to donate a limited amount of money, and I don't remember really for what administrative reasons we couldn't, but I'm sure that we can in principle. But as I said, it's something that we didn't consider in detail, because we were not approached recently.
Yeah, it's not a hot topic. Yeah. And Alberto, putting now in connection the European Geosciences Union with society at large, especially within the framework of the COVID crisis. I read some of your remarks about this situation when you are quoting Winston Churchill saying, "Don't waste of good crisis." Do you want to talk about what is the role of the EGU in this post-COVID recovery?
I think there is a primary role that we felt was our duty, is to keep the scientific community unified, our community, because our community, like any other community under COVID-19, was at the beginning very depressed. So I think it was our role to say, hey, don't worry, this we will get out from this, and our contribution, it's very important, even if we are not directly dealing with medical sciences. Actually, we are dealing with earth sciences, but also, you know, we are dealing with environmental challenges, with environmental threats. So we were very quick in telling our members, don't worry. And even if we will have some reduction of funding, we have to keep going. And how can we contribute? And one first recipe that we proposed was under a crisis, you have to avoid the second crisis. So let's try to give contributions to avoid that there is a superimposition of crisis. So if there is an economic crisis now, because we are seeing what is going to happen, we have to give our contributions so that the economic crisis doesn't negatively impact on the environment, on climate change mitigation, on climate change adaptation. So let's look at the opportunities. For instance, COVID-19, I think, introduced a new practice for the reduction of CO2 emissions. Virtual meetings now will become the norm. And this is an amazing change. If you go back 1 year from now, you see, organizing a virtual conference was a challenge. There was the connection unstable. There were many problems. Now everybody is able to organize a virtual meeting, from the child to the very senior persons. So I think it is really opening opportunities. So virtual meetings are an enormous opportunity for reducing our CO2 emissions. But of course, we have to give guidance on not only how to organize meetings, how to reduce emissions in a period of economic constraints. So I think there were already some interesting contributions by the literature on that. So how to organize this meeting? Should we split the meeting into smaller events? And I think it is an intensive period of reflection and of proactivity. So
I see that you try to avoid to overlap crises. So we are living in a pandemic with already overlapping the economic crisis. So we have already two. And then you say, let's try to avoid the second one. Maybe you meant the third, which could be, yes, maybe an environmental crisis. So in order to avoid this extra overlap, what should we do? What is the things that the geoscientists they have to do? Because I was hearing you talking about having more in relationships between policymakers and geoscientists. Is this maybe the main road to go through, having like a smoother relationship between policymakers and geoscientists?
yes, I think this is a possibility. In fact, we strive now to organize several meetings between scientists and policymakers, because now it's easier. I mean, in the past it was difficult because when you speak with policymakers, they are very busy, and it's difficult that they attend in presence a meeting. Now it's very easy. So I think we have to take this opportunity. And I think we should make an effort to be more practical and to look at the impact of our science and to look at the sustainability of what we propose. I think that sometimes scientists, they don't take the policy implications fully into account. So they may end up by proposing solutions that are not sustainable. And for instance, when we talk about reducing the emissions, I think scientists should get more informed about the economic implications. Sometimes we just recommend reduce the emissions, but sometimes scientists are not able to look at the overall context.
Who's gonna teach us this? We don't learn it at school. The universities and professors, they don't teach us this. How are we gonna know this?
Yeah, I think, what we really need is to promote interdisciplinarity. And then you may say, how to do this? Okay, I tell you, I think we still suffer all over the world from an academic system that doesn't recognize interdisciplinarity. So now, if a young scientist is really interdisciplinary, the risk is that she is not recognized by anybody. And I think this is the real problem. So first of all, we have to change the academic system for giving recognitions to people who are really interdisciplinary. And another issue is to recognize the efforts to connect with policymakers. Nowadays, what we recognize in the university is publications, citations, sometimes service to the institution, which is a good thing. We have to be able to recognize also our proactivity with respect to policymakers and our interdisciplinary behavior. This is really challenging.
Alberto, can you give us some examples of what are like 2 or 3 disciplines that you have to put together to call this interdisciplinary, and another example on what we could do to approach policymakers?
I think, give an example of disciplines. It's easy for me. I'm speaking with a geologist. I think it is very difficult still today to establish a dialogue between engineers and geologists. And sometimes also engineers are even not considered scientists. I think that engineering, hydrology, geology should get together. And actually, I don't see many examples where there is a fruitful cooperation. I don't see many countries where there is a fruitful cooperation between hydrologists and geologists. And this is one example, which is very close to my heart, but I could also say economics. And I think the dialogue between engineers and economists is in my country is really, really, really very, very low. And another example of getting in touch with policymakers, local administrations. So why scientists shouldn't put their knowledge and experience at the service of local administrations? It's very easy. And I tell you why they don't do that, because there is no recognition for this. Absolutely not. So, and
so Alberto, you're aiming to change the rules of the game, because if we are if a career path is still tied up to publications, and you don't give incentives to people to do this service work, if we want to call it, then you can have outliers here and there that they do it for their own passion, but you're not going to have the critical mass or most of the geoscientists doing this.
I think changing the game is possible. It's not only one person who changes the game, it's several persons in several years. But I make a prediction, we are in 2020. If you look at the publication market in 10 years from now, it will be completely different. Publication, and also I would say the academic system for recognition, it's already changing slowly, but it's already changing. So we are now recognizing that the only H index, it's not a good indicator of academic performances. And I think we are moving forward.
How do you see this future? What will be the changes that you foresee now?
I think, first of all, open access in everything. And it would be very nice if it was open access, very open, which I mean gold open access. So it's clear that if you have to pay 3,000 euros for publishing an open access paper, it's not really open access, because it's open for reading, but it's not open for paying. So my dream would be a free open access. And I think we are not far from it. I think it is a feasible target. And again, it's not only one person, it's a long process, but maybe, and let me also say open education, because still education is costly. I want to give you a couple of examples. One is I'm self-serving now. I started 8 years ago to make my university lecture publicly available on YouTube. At the beginning, I was like a pioneer. Now it's becoming the norm, and I think it should be the norm still. Now it's the norm, but still with limited access. My dream is that also lecture at the university are available for free. I think this is one example. Talking about openness, the virtual conference that EGU organized this year was free, no subscription fee. The result was that we got people from 140 different countries subscribing to the conference. In the past, the max was 110. So just to note, it's clear that it was a particular year, everybody was locked in, so maybe that some people also attended the conference because they were in a way in a particular situation. But I also think that openness means inclusivity.
And Alberto, you mentioned about this interdisciplinary approach that would be awarded possibly in the near future. I would like to mention that in industry, maybe EGU is leaning more to academia than industry, but in industry, and I'm part of that world because my employer is part of the industry. You as a geoscientist, you are kind of forced to be rounded a generalist, where you are interdisciplinary. You are forced to talk with the engineers because you have a common goal. You have to know how to approach him, what he needs, and vice versa, including maybe if you want to make a triangle, geology, engineers, and economics, because you need to know the framework where you are working, if it is worth it or not. Have you, now with this premise, have you ever thought about populating a little bit more the EGU, or inviting a little bit more this kind of professional figures that they could bring those skills and characteristics that you're mentioning?
Yes, first of all, any big conference, as you know, it's has an exhibition where there is indeed a way to get in touch with stakeholders, and there are also some industries, not many really, but I would say that there is a good representation anyway, and I think to promote a more deep involvement, we should identify common targets. So the target of the researcher is, again, getting project funding, getting publication and citations. And the target of the industry, of course, it's different. I think we should promote the identification of common targets that are recognized by the academia. So I go back again to the academic system, because I think really it is the key. So if you change the academic system for recognition, you really may change the way problems are approached and solved.
Alberto, we are at the top of the hour, and we still have a couple of minutes. So I would like you to give you the chance to use mini geology as a megaphone. And so if there is something that you still want to say that you couldn't say, I didn't ask you, please go ahead, address the audience, and the mic is yours.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite all the communities to be very positive, because we need a positive attitude to recover from this situation. And positive means that we have to be convinced that we can do something, and that our contribution is extremely important. So this is the first recommendation. And to be more practical, I usually like to give some advice to early career scientists. And given the subject of this conversation, that was actually my experience, I would like to give to early career scientists the suggestion of being always very diverse, and to take a wide perspective. Diverse means that in your life you have to have more than one passion, and it means that you have to have more than one interest, several interests, and you have to be very proactive and dedicated to the common benefit. I think it is maybe a naive conclusion, but I really think that a positive attitude helps a lot in everything.
Thank you so much, Alberto. This was another episode of Mini Geology. This is Daniel Minizini, and we were in conversation with Alberto Montanari. Alberto is the president of the European Geosciences Union, EGU, and he's professor at the University of Bologna in Italy, joining us from Reggio Emilia in the north of Italy. Thank you so much, Alberto, for sharing all our views and news with us.
Thank you, Daniel, and I really hope the best for you and for your audience. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my words. Thanks.